This is the Astrology Show podcast with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. These are your stars for the week starting August 26, and your sign prediction is now a little longer. Aries. The Libra sun from the final week of September to the third week of October will expose what you are well known, recognised, or even famous for in terms of the former or current partner that your life is picking up. So this may be your husband or your boyfriend, for example, or your professional other half. This exposure in terms of him or her will make you sharply aware of how proud you do or do not feel about you and this person, Aries. You also have Juno and Diana in Libra in your zone of former and current partners. This karmic cycle with the South Node too forces you to confront yourself as others see you and she, or you and he. It's about the pair of you. Late September or October may already be in your diary with this person or for them. That is a bridge to cross for you, and the finishing line is January 2025. Looking at your chart, we have this lineup here with the South Node, Juno and Diana, unusually all in the same sector of your chart, which rules the scales of balance and fairness and equality, or otherwise, with your other half, be it professional or be it personal. So there are some mixed messages going on here. Juno is all about commitment and the benefits that you get from commitment, but Diana is very much about zero commitment. In fact, these two goddesses, these asteroids passing through your chart, have you thinking in duality, maybe dealing with two people who represent both the principles of freedom and commitment, or maybe you're just juggling both as a concept. What's different about this week is that you're being taken back 18 or 19 years into the past. The South Node moves backwards through the zodiac signs, not forwards. So here we have it at 7 Libra. And whereas everything else in your chart is going forwards in chronological order, this point in your chart is actually pulling you backwards in time. And the last time that it happened was 18 or 19 years ago. This may be about the same individual, or it may be about a different face from the past who triggers the same themes and questions. Whenever you get these nodal transits, and this one won't be out of your life until January 2025, you get the sense that you are owed, or that you perhaps owe on a spiritual level. And that's quite true. And nowhere is this more obvious than when you look at the analogy of a set of scales. This may have been a legal matter for you 18 or 19 years ago, or the principle of justice may have been invoked. It's extremely common for there to be issues between men and women, and sometimes you're looking at issues about black or white as well. The scales of Libra are all about finding harmony and equilibrium. And at the moment, this week has you on the turn with that, because there's a sense here that no matter how you keep trying to change the script with her or him or about them, you always get returned to the same mini-series. This is quite true, but the mini-series does end in January next year. Taurus. Women and female issues are writ large with your job, your doctor, your unpaid work, your academic career, your housework, dentist, and so on. Keep one eye on what happened 18 or 19 years ago, as the South Node is very much in your chart, passing through the sign of Libra and your 6th house of mind, body, and spirit. At the moment, you can rewrite the chapter or start a new chapter from January next year, but trying to change anything before then may be a little bit preemptive. These transits in Libra in your 6th house are karmic in nature, so life 18 or 19 years ago plays a part, thanks to the South Node. You owe or you are owed. There may have been a medical episode then, or a question about going vegetarian, maybe a question about weight loss. Whatever it is, and maybe you were the healer helping somebody else get healed, so you're definitely owed. This week will turn the wheel as you realise that you have actually seen this before. Now, women I mentioned because what we have here is a couple of asteroid in your chart, Juno and Diana in the sign of Libra. and they're very much associated with two completely different kinds of female. So this may be your dentist, for example, or it may be you if you're nursing somebody. But there are questions here about commitment and also binding agreements, about security, about promises and pledges. And yet, coming from the other angle, we have Diana with all her need for autonomy and freedom and liberation, for a life less shackled. So in your health zone, in your zone of food, doctors, diet, dentists, and all the rest, it's quite interesting to see these two female symbols dancing around your chart. Sometimes you get men who express their feminine side, and you may spot a Diana who is actually a male, or a Juno who is actually a male. But generally, it seems to be the female of the species in a week like this. The choices that you make will reflect the two different arguments pulling you in two different directions. So, for example, you may want to commit to a new, healthier way of being fit, joining a gym. At the same time, you want to be free and you'd rather go outside with the dog. So it's on that level. But what you choose will have an impact on you for quite a long time, as the background to this cycle is the South Node in Libra, which moves backwards through your chart until January 2025, when at last you realise that you've been released from a loop or a circuit. If you're one of those people who has Virgo factors in your natal chart or your birth chart, then you can double that message about the body, the mind, and the spirit, because this week we also have a stellium in Virgo in your natal sixth house, which is exactly the same part of your life. So for you, this really is a big turning point, and the choices that you make will change your life. It's not just about your body, mind, and spirit. It's also about the work that you do, your housework, any unpaid work, or any academic work. And for you at the moment, if you do have Virgo factors, everything that you're sorting out will continue to influence you in 2025 as well. Gemini, when you're planning September, know that correcting a couple areas of your life will be your number one priority. You have to reverse, rethink, reschedule, rewrite, and so on. Maybe rebook the trip on this transit. Mercury retrograde is slowly correcting from September 11. Until then, so this week, you are recycling information. You may be renegotiating and redrawing plans involving your brother, sister, or cousin. And it's the same with your house, your family, your apartment, or your household. Mercury has been retrograde in both Leo and Virgo, two zones of your chart next door to each other. Leo rules your siblings or your cousins, and so plans and discussions involving them or around them are already reversing. At the same time, Virgo rules where you live, how you live, property and real estate, and your hometown or homeland. And here too, everything is slowly reversing. This does come good later on, but because you're ruled by Mercury, it's worth looking at this more seriously, because the smallest things can lead to the biggest retractions or even cancellations. It's very true that Mercury retrograde is the cycle that saw the Titanic sink, partly because messages were under a paperweight and not passed on, partly because a key was not where it should have been. All these tiny trivial details can lead to really big outcomes. This isn't the case with you because there's really nothing major here in your sector of property, real estate, and home. You do, however, need to understand that the wheel is spinning backwards and forwards to allow you to rehearse and also to do some research. In fact, if you put the prefix re in front of anything in your chart in reference to your house or your apartment, your land, your town, or your country, then you're going to be on a surefire winner, because this whole cycle is about the re prefix and making it work for you. If you go to an auction and something gets passed in, then perhaps you'll find it re-emerging later on at a new price. Mercury rules merchandising and markets, and the atmosphere with Mercury retrograde is often like a jumble sale or a bazaar. Things change hands, and then you see them changing hands moments later at a different price, or you get dealers who buy and sell at all kinds of varying prices. So if you're in for purchasing or leasing a house or apartment, you may want to bear that in mind. We are in absolute flux at the moment with this Mercury transit. The other thing about your week that's important to note is that the moon starts the week in Gemini on the 26th of August, and this augurs well for a relaunch, a rebranding, and also presentation and packaging. So if you're already on that path, presenting a new face of yourself to the world or adding a bit of luster to your name, then you can expect more of the same. Cancer. Women dominate this week, and feminism matters. The female of the species can be more deadly than the male in a week like this. With that in mind, though, you can now sort out the house, the apartment, the family, the household, the property investment, not to mention your feelings about your town and country. There may also be a question here about brothers, sisters, or cousins, as Mercury has been retrograde in this zone. If so, it will take time to sort out. The focus on feminism and female equality comes from Juno and Diana in Libra, in your fourth house of the family and the shared household. The possibility of a sibling or cousin being a stuck story is Mercury retrograde in your third house, ruled by Virgo. But to return to the family or the household, there is some karma here going back 18 or 19 years. So that's the South Node in Libra. This strange spot in your horoscope goes backwards and not forwards. So even though the issues here are temporary, and the issues are about female independence and space, but also a woman's commitment to a man, you also have something much, much bigger going on, which is the need to balance karma from the past, because you are clearly owed or you owe others. Even if you can't remember back that far, it's true to say that there may be a feeling of familiarity about what you're encountering with a relative or your household as a whole. Sometimes the issue is bigger, so it's about the local council or the government and where you come from. All this sense of déjà vu is completely correct, because you have in fact had this cycle before. And the bizarre thing about the South Node is that it goes round in a loop or a circuit in infinity. In fact, we think as astrologers that Stonehenge itself was a kind of measuring device for just this sort of circuit. Round and round the South Node goes. All the familiarity and repetition, the sense of déjà vu and knowing what's coming next in the script with a family member or somebody in the household is actually your chance to rehearse what you're going to say and do next, because you can change on the inside on this transit, even though you can't change the action on the outside. The film itself or the TV series of your life will continue to replay and rewind. But what's different is you as an actor in the drama. You do have free will, and you have the choice to develop or cultivate whatever response you're going to come up with. In the meantime, thinking that whatever you say and do is going to affect a change may be a bit of a red herring, because it's really hard to change the tides of time when the South Node is working backwards like this. However, when you get to January 2025, you will be able to sign off from this cycle and say that you have, in fact, achieved closure. Leo, well, you have been through an epic Mercury retrograde in Virgo, ruling tax returns, business negotiations, and so on, but also in terms of inheritance, mortgages, or financial intimate relationships like a husband and your bank account or your wife and your will. Why? Well, Saturn and Neptune in your 8th house, along with Mercury backtracking in your 2nd house. These two houses are all about everything that you own, earn, or owe. And this does not stop until September 11. So this is also about issues like buying an apartment or selling one. It is about paying rent to a man for an apartment when you know that he fancies you but is with another woman. It is also about your old sugar mummy, perhaps, even though you split up years ago. Everybody's different, and your birth chart will tell the story, Leo. But the 8th house is traditionally about complicated relationships with dollars, pounds, or euros involved, or something that would command a hefty price. While you're busy reversing, rethinking, retracting, rescheduling, this is a good time to think about what Saturn and Neptune in Pisces actually means. This transit is historic, and once it's gone in 2025, you won't see it again quite like this in your adult lifetime. It is a combination of a couple of things. The first one is barriers insurmountable obstacles, high walls, big locks and gates, and a sense of a fortress that you cannot get out of or cannot get into. Everything is very much there in quite a heavy way with Saturn, and there is no quick or easy shortcut. You can't just nip around the corner of whatever structure is there. So this may be something that is inevitable or unavoidable, like a family inheritance, or it may be, of course, a mortgage that you and your partner have signed. At the same time, remembering that this cycle ends next year, it's true to say that you are in a bubble. So Neptune supplies the bubble. There is something of an alternative reality about your situation with the money, the house, the apartment, the business, or the valuable possessions. It's not quite real. It exists in a world of its own. It is real, of course, because you're immersed in it. But from an outsider's point of view, this is another world. It's a holiday from the everyday or a vacation from what is normal. Having this to juggle, the very high walls and the quite heavy gates and fences, along with this bubble world, takes time, Leo, and time is something that Saturn always commands. This does turn next year, but just for the moment, you may want to take your time with it because this week requires a bit of deeper contemplation. Virgo, Saturn and Neptune are making patterns in Pisces, so think about so much more time for plans involving dating, mating, relating, or even separating. This odd combination is now at large this week. These transits in Pisces opposite you in the 7th house of duets and duels and double acts are historic and slow moving. With Saturn, you get the message that you have to wait, and that does not change until next year. With Saturn, you also get the message with this person, this far and no further. There are big walls here. With Neptune also in the game, you hear that everything is all over the place, everywhere, all the time, and there are no boundaries whatsoever. So this is most peculiar. This duet or this duel with a particular man or woman who is paired up with you or very much against you tells you that there are no limits, but also big limits. For example, there may be a very loose flowing situation within the marriage or a business partnership where it's all quite random, but at the same time, you know that there is access no areas. So while this ends next year, Virgo, in 2025, you do have a bit of life management to do. These Pisces transits don't last, but while they do last, they do have quite an impact on the rules of the game with your other half or the other side. And this is even more important if this is a legal matter or if it involves binding agreements and paperwork, a couple of signatures. Depending on your personal chart, if you're one of those Virgo people who have Libra factors, then there is also karma here going back 18 or 19 years, either with the same person or in terms of a relationship, marriage, or work partnership that involved you then. If there was a dispute or conflict 18 or 19 years ago, Virgo, and you do have Libra factors, then this is personal and you have to repay or be paid back spiritually. Whatever your chart looks like, at the moment, your horoscope also shows something that is pulling you away from relationships and partnerships and more towards your own success. The week begins with your success zone lit as you go into Monday, the 26th of August. That's a really good couple of days, Monday and Tuesday, to let people know what you can do and what you want to do. Libra, let's talk about the transits in Aries in your zone of duets and double acts, partnerships and two-way streets. It goes on next year because Saturn and Neptune both go into Aries. Right now, you have Chiron and the North Node there. This may be related to your situation with a partner just discussed or a potential partner for the future. Saturn is affecting next year from Aries right now, and next year you will be dealing with a new, rather heavy and serious structure with or around this person, patiently dealing with a new wall or ring-fenced defense system. Because the task ahead of you will necessarily involve slow progress, great endurance, and plenty of stamina, it's a really good idea to do as much as you can now. Right now, you have Chiron on the North Node in Aries. Next year, the North Node goes, but then you have Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So this week is really pointing you towards next year. No wonder it all feels as if you have to figure out 2025 and 2024. The two-way street can be platonic. It can be someone in your home, but not in your bedroom, or it can be a golden anniversary marriage. The dual can be a woman who has replaced you in terms of your partnership. Everybody's different, and your personal chart will reveal that. But there is karma here because you were born with the sun in the 7th house in Libra, which rules the double act as well as the battle. And about 18 or 19 years ago, you went through an episode with this person or a completely different face, which has familiar themes and stories for you now. So if you get the feeling that you have experienced this before on some level, or that you are being repaid or even being asked to settle spiritual accounts, it's not your imagination. Just to be born with the sun in Libra is to be born with the sun in the 7th house of the scales that have to be balanced. And while this South Node is rocketing backwards in that zone of your natal chart, you are going through this big question about what's fair and perhaps what you need to collect or what you need to offer up. These things are bigger than you and, in fact, bigger than all of us. This famous cycle, the nodal cycle, is known in many different cultures. In India, for example, they call it the cycle of Rahu and Ketu. It's also known as the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. In modern astrology, we think of it as a pair of opposites in the heavens going backwards. So the opposite signs at the moment for you are Libra and Aries. In your Libra chart, Aries rules the other person. In your birth chart, you've got it going back the other way. So it's the same story told twice. This week is about mulling over your options and thinking about January 2025 as the month that you sign off. You get karmic closure then because the nodes will also move on. They will no longer be hanging around in Libra and Aries, and you can get on with other things. But right now, if you feel as if you're being pulled magnetically towards a situation where the scales must be evenly weighted, you're absolutely right. Scorpio. Well, let's talk about Uranus in Taurus in your zone of duets and duels. This is a time of slow revolution, as you probably know, and it's been happening since 2018. This week, it picks up again. Uranus was discovered in 1781 at around the time of the French, American, and Industrial Revolutions. This is quite the time for you with your own revolution with the other person. This may be your other half or the other side. It's the face on the other end of the scales. So for Hillary Clinton, it might be Bill Clinton or Donald Trump. Whether this is a duet or a duel for you, you are also going through the most intensely personal issues because Neptune and Saturn in Pisces are going through your 5th house of children. So the link that you have with a son or daughter will be a big part of the story, or perhaps a broken link. When do you get a break from all this? Next year. Until then, this week points you to the need to sort out the rest of this year as Uranus leaves Taurus and your zone of duets and duels in 2025, and the constant issues about freedom and independence will be gone. This is temporary. It doesn't last. Neptune and Saturn will also leave Pisces next year, and with them goes a rather confused and confusing situation with your offspring or the question of pregnancy, adoption, fostering, godchildren, young relatives, and a younger generation. So if this part of the year feels intense, it's because it is, and you are in fact closing off many cycles at the same time, which are all connected with your other half or the other side and the next generation. At the moment, you have a lot on your plate emotionally, and as an emotional water sign, it's very important that you get some time out for it. When we look at your chart this week, for example, we can see that there is an overload of factors in an area of your horoscope related to the financial and property side of things as much as anything else. And even though this looks good for you and there are solutions and opportunities at a 12-year high for you, it's also true that you have to put those to one side because you cannot hang a price tag on particular relationships or the different ways there are of balancing the scales. So, in a way, for you as an emotional water sign, you may need to compartmentalize your life this week, separate the feelings from the numbers, because the numbers are looking very rosy indeed, with all sorts of big answers between now and next year. But emotionally, you've got a different kind of reckoning to do. Sagittarius, this is a good week to ask about how much control you have over your money, over your property. And these are important questions during the final months that Pluto is steadily transforming your life. He retrogrades in September, October, and November, so he goes backwards. It's very common to go through experiences which give you incredible control and influence financially with a house or apartment or a business. But as you have learned since 2008, the only thing that is going to make that happen is willpower. Look at your diary now, as September, October, November are likely to be there. You may be splitting costs on a renovation then, or be bound to see a lawyer for whatever reason. Pluto in Capricorn in your second house and Ceres in Capricorn in your second house as well require a closer look. And your chart this week clearly shows what's going on. Pluto is hovering at 0 Aquarius, waiting to go back to 29 Capricorn once you're firmly in September. Everything is going to be refried and rehashed with the money, the house, the business, or the apartment at that point. You also have Ceres going backwards in Capricorn in exactly the same sector of your horoscope. So there's a lot of backward traction here. And when that happens in your chart, it can be difficult to move forward with any momentum. The key to everything is to remember everything that's happened to you since 2008, because it is through finance and particularly business for some of you that questions about your power and control have been played out, or your lack of power. The 8th house of your horoscope shows very clearly other people's stake in what is going on, and that's also quite busy this week. But it is the 2nd house of the chart that describes your value system, that is what you will or will not sell your soul for, and who or what is so precious to you, it is priceless. It is this value system of yours, your life budget, if you like, that is now where all the reckoning up is going to take place over a 3 or 4 month period, as you go from September to November, which is the first big ending, and then December, which is the final turn of the page. You can sign off from this by January, and 2025 really will feel like a completely different and new year. It is quite common for Sagittarians to be informed by their own philosophy or belief system, their own faith, if you like, or their principles, their ethics, and what they feel guides them. And this does have an impact on what you do with your money, your house, your charity, your business, or your investments, your shares, for example. All of this is bubbling under at the moment, but if you're wondering why nothing is moving forward, it's because your horoscope is so geared that it's waiting to move backwards. From September, you will see exactly why. Capricorn. On the extended family front, Capricorn, babies, children, teenagers, or Generation Z still shows quite radical change. This may be IVF, fostering, a change in education, adoption, or an ongoing search for a baby. It may be a pregnancy process. The possibilities are endless because your personal life is your personal life, but it is true to say that this is 5th house stuff, and the 5th house is about how you are queen or king to a younger court. Some of you don't have children, you can't have them, or you don't want them. In other cases, you have quite the brood. But whatever's going on, and some of you have a professional involvement with younger people, at the moment, it's wise this week to understand that there is nothing fixed, permanent, or stable about the situation. And even though you're an earth sign and quite grounded, trying to pin it down is really not the idea. In fact, life will have shown you that since 2018. Every time you try to make plans and fix things firmly and get some sort of structure or organization, perhaps as a parent, maybe as a teacher, you have found yourself on slippery ground, as it is in the nature of this long-running Uranus transit to constantly shake the ground beneath your feet. Just when you get settled, or you would hope for something that you can predict, it becomes quite literally unpredictable. Looking at your chart this week, this is all to the fore, and it's probably time for you to think in terms of 2025. Next year, you can and will slowly start to get things on a more secure footing. Whether it has been an up and down adoption process in a foreign country, or whether the issue has been your son's behaviour. All sorts comes out of this transit, and for some of you, it has been about fertility. However you're playing it, understanding that you are in a way dealing with stormy weather and regular electrical storms are common on this transit can help you. It may help to think in terms of adjusting and adapting to the weather as it alters around you all the time. And this is particularly true as you head towards October. In fact, that month may already be showing up in your diary, Capricorn. For some of you, the issue has been dating people who have children from another relationship. So the hovering question of being a potential step-parent is never very far away from the dinner table. That, again, is a movable feast. What comes out of this and what you will be gathering this week is that independence and freedom are more important than anything else. And even though life has been so unstable, it is always independence and freedom that get delivered to you, he and or she, on this transit. Aquarius. The South Node is in Libra, so rotate and repeat with travel, emigration, migrants, foreigners, foreign countries, and travellers. Nothing appears to be changing. It's the same old thing. It can be the same with export or matters centred abroad. Yet you can change yourself. The South Node in Libra is worth a closer look. It is always opposite the North Node in Aries and rotates every 18 to 19 years. People have trouble remembering back that far, but trust the sense of sameness or repetition now. You go back, and if you owe someone, then you have to deal with that. It will be played out in quite an obvious way. If you are owed because you were kind or generous to a foreign person 18 or 19 years ago, then you now receive. And again, it's played out in quite an obvious way. When we go to your birth chart as well, if you have anything in the sign of Sagittarius, that is now under opposition from a transit in Gemini as the week begins. And if you are a Sagittarian kind of Aquarian, it's going to be intensely personal for you. If everything rotates and repeats until January 2025, don't be surprised. The nodal cycle has a habit of pulling you backwards in time until then. It may be difficult to get anything brand new underway or to start new talking points. People seem to stick to the same old script, but what you can do is change on the inside. Pisces. Your Saturn and Neptune in Pisces cycle is triggered now, so your online personality will be in the frame as people are trying to work out who you really are and what you're really all about. This is a notoriously confused and confusing transit for matters of image. It ends in 2025, which will make life a lot more simple. Until then, there may be puzzles about your name, about your face on the internet, about your social media, which is where most people are famous for 5 minutes these days, and about your brand. While you live with it, it's worth exploring Saturn and Neptune in Pisces in the first house in more detail. This is a transit that's been with you for quite some time. As you are, in fact, ruled by Neptune, it is easy for you to feel all at sea. In fact, all the aquatic metaphors are appropriate for your sign. You are ruled by the two fish, and you can swim in different directions. You can find yourself being pulled backwards and forwards by the tides of time, finding it very difficult to get a footing and losing the horizon, for example. All those metaphors that we have for the beach and the sea are appropriate for how you feel now about aspects of your image, your name, your reputation, or your public face. People also get confused by you on this transit as if they were looking at you through a fish eye lens. Neptune rules distortion. So there may be some muddle here about who exactly you are or what your shtick is and what you're best known for and how we should think about you. None of this is narcissism, nor is it ego. It's actually common sense because you only get this transit once in your adult life. And here you are, Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. Just knowing, though, that Neptune's almost at the end and that 2025 will release you from this should give you the ability to set some targets this week. One of the targets might be figuring out a way to anchor this, ground it, and look for the lighthouse. You also need to make sure that you're pretty vigilant about boundaries, as other people will be trying to get into your space in terms of your profile on the internet pretty much all the time. Or you may find that other people or large organisations are immersing themselves in how you're seen and projected and known, and you've not given them permission to do that. So a few boundaries with a capital B is always a good idea, Pisces, and particularly so this week as Saturn and Neptune go through your sign. Now let's finish by looking at your personal chart. If you do have Gemini factors, there is a nice stellium in Gemini to start the week with incredible potential to June next year for your projects, ideas and plans. Your tarot this week can be decoded at my website. Aries, the Devil. Taurus, the Three of Cups. Gemini, the Three of Wands. Cancer, the High Priestess. Leo, the Two of Pentacles. Virgo, the Lovers. Libra, the Three of Swords. Scorpio, the Five of Cups. Sagittarius, the Four of Pentacles. Capricorn, the Four of Staves. Aquarius, the World. Pisces, the King of Cups. Fated connections are Aries and Libra, dealing with the karma of life 18 to 19 years before. Happy birthday if it's your birthday. You have already been pretty successful, but the really big prize is still out there until June 2025. Babies born this week have factors in Libra, the sign of equality, feminism, the men's movement, and social justice. They were born fair and wanting fair play. Finally, famous birthdays include Mo Tucker, who is 80 on August 26, Jet Black, who would have been 86 on the same day, two drummers. Glenn Matlock is 68 on August 27, Hugh Cornwell is 75 on August 28, and Glenn Tilbrook is 67 on August 31. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening and see you next week.